You will see these and other programs by various denominations. Interfaith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Love knows no boundaries, or so it has been said. People have crossed the lines of color, race, and geography to be with the ones they love. Today, we talk about the line that may be more barrier than boundary. How do marriages work for those who cross the religion line? Hello, I'm Valerie Bridgman Davis, co-pastor of Benah Full Community Church, and your host for today's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Today, I'm joined by two couples who married despite their religious differences, and we will explore the blessings and the pitfalls that people of interfaith relationships experience. Welcome, please, Inedelia Obregon, I missed it anyway, and her husband, Ed Sills, and Cliff and Wendy Fleck. You can pronounce your own name. Okay. Both couples are of Christian Jewish background, and I'm sorry that a couple of Buddhist and Christian background was unable to join us. But welcome to all four of you. I'm really glad you're here.
Thank you.
I usually tell people we have visited some before, so that if we start saying things that seem to come out of the blue, they will know that we've at least talked about it somewhere. So I want to start with Ed and Inedelia. You are Jewish.
Yes.
Ed. Okay, would you tell us something about your background? And
I grew up attending an Orthodox synagogue, and the family was not totally observant, but my grandfather and I would go to synagogue every week. And as I got older, and especially when I got into college, I began to indulge in secular humanism. So I wouldn't say that at this point I'm Orthodox, but I still feel a strong affinity toward my religion, feel very strongly about being Jewish. And we met, and the story goes on from there.
all right, Inedelia, your background?
Roman Catholic, extremely Catholic. 12 years of religious classes alongside regular school, you know, Mass every Sunday, confession every Saturday, you know. And I guess my mom is very Catholic. I guess if she were Jewish, she'd be Orthodox, you know, and all my family is, for the most part, very Catholic.
And although Ed is not practicing,
I am a practicing Catholic. I belong to St. Thomas More Parish, and I do volunteer work there as well.
okay. Where does almost Orthodox Jew and Roman Catholic meet, even to marry?
The newsroom of the San Antonio Light.
Okay. Did the question of religion come up at all
It didn't
in the
come
dating time?
It didn't come up for a large part of the time we were dating. Only when we became serious about marriage did we begin to discuss it. And when we started talking about marriage, we also started talking about religion, and we tried to map out a plan for when we got married. And
okay, we're going to come back to that plan in a minute. Let's jump Cliff and Wendy in here. Cliff, you are actually studying for the ministry. You want to tell us about your background?
I didn't grow up in a very strict church family. In fact, it wasn't until age 17, during a crisis in my life, that I came to be a very serious Christian, and at 18 started attending church on a regular basis.
Where was that? What church?
This was in the Methodist Church, United Methodist Church, back in Pennsylvania. At that point, then at age 21, in 1981, I through a Fred Waring music choral workshop held at Penn State University, I met my wife, who was from Los Angeles, California.
And your background, Wendy?
My background is Jewish. In my immediate family, I didn't feel any strong religious practices going on regularly from week to week. We celebrated with the family on the holy holidays. My grandparents, for the most part, on my father's side, were the ones that I considered Orthodox. I don't know really if they are truly Orthodox, but for as well as I knew what the term meant, they were my Orthodox grandparents, and the ones on my mother's side were, again, more traditional. And that's basically the way I saw it. I didn't grow up attending regular temple services. My older sister and I were not bas mitzvahed. For me, it became, by the time I was old enough to think about religion in my own terms, more of a traditional family issue than a religious issue.
Okay, you all met in 81 and you married in 83, but you converted to Christianity. Would you talk about that?
Well, I was, from practically the time that we met, it was just a couple weeks after we met at that first workshop. He invited me to attend church services with him. I was extremely wary. I'm really not sure why. I don't know if I can put it into words, but I just thought, well, I don't know, there's something about this I shouldn't do, and he kept telling me, you don't have to go back. We're just going to go to one service, and if you like it, we can. If you don't, you don't have to. And I came away with a feeling of warmth and love rather than pressure, which is what I was expecting. And so as our relationship grew and we continued to see each other through a huge turn of events, by the time we got to talking about marriage, I was attending weekly services, I was singing in the choir, it was a part of my life, and it was, again, I guess something that led to a traditional thing that was shifting from my family with whom I grew up to this man that I was considering marriage with at this time. And I just saw no point in continuing to attend the services and be a part of the church without going ahead and becoming baptized, also knowing that we were going to bring up our children in that faith.
We'll come back to the children in a minute. Ed, a while ago you said that the question of religion came up very early, as soon as you knew you were serious. And Adelia, Ed, you want to talk about what serious meant and also how you addressed the question of religion?
Well, I guess serious meant that, we were dating exclusively and we were talking a little bit about, the future, things like that. And the issue of marriage and children was something that we wanted to resolve before we actually walked down the aisle or whatever, because that can raise a lot of problems among families.
We didn't want to get into a situation where we would have problems with our parents after we got married or looking to the future. We didn't want to get into a situation where we had children who would not know what their religion was. Yeah. And we wanted to be able to settle that as best we could, realizing there might be things we can't see coming, but we were able to make some decisions early on, and I think it helped us. Yeah.
There was an 18-month period for you all while you were resolving this.
Yes.
Would you told me earlier when we were talking that you asked the question, well, what's a Jew? And will you talk about that, Ed?
Yeah. I was brought up to believe, and the Orthodox rabbis will say that a Jew is someone who has a mother who is a Jew. Judaism flows through the maternal side, and in this particular situation, it seemed best to me to consider raising our children Catholic. As a result of that, it would minimize the need for conversions, and it was also important to both of us to retain our religions. I don't think either one of us was anxious to convert.
Yeah. My concern also was that whatever religion we raised our child, I wanted him or her to be active in it. I didn't want a child to be a Jew or a Catholic in name only. And because I'm a lot more observant than Ed is, that was, one of the factors. And also the acceptance. Our concern was that whatever religion our child was going to be raised in, that he or she would be fully accepted. With Roman Catholicism, you do not have to prove bloodlines. And because in Judaism you do, there are some questions as to, will this child be fully accepted by all the different branches of Judaism, and we didn't want our child to be rejected.
At all. That's
Yes.
good. I want to come back over here. You converted. I want to know, you said there was no pressure. I want to know how your family responded to your marrying a Jewish woman, and then the other question, how your family responded to your marrying and also converting to Christianity.
Well, because it happened to work out where Wendy joined my faith, of course my family just, and I sense this from Wendy's family as well, their happiness of their child is what's most important. We didn't talk much about it at the time of the wedding, and through the years now, especially with me going into seminary, it has certainly come up.
How many years have you been married?
We've been married now since 1983, 8 years. It'll be 8 years this August. Nothing much was said until 2 years ago when our first child was born, our only child. And at that time, it was about the same time I decided to enter seminary and start a career in the ministry.
So you really bombarded Wendy's parents with a lot of stuff. Can you talk about how that affected both your relationship and how your parents responded?
Well, there's no doubt that Cliff and I would discuss things very early on. And we've been very open with each other, and just from day one, because of the two different religions involved, that's really never been an issue for us. We've been able to discuss things and work them out. The difficulty comes then in communicating with my side of the family. Part of that is because we're in Texas, they're in California. So that every time we do communicate with them, there's just a little more stress involved. When it first came up that I was had a serious relationship with someone who was not of the Jewish faith, there really wasn't much of an issue made by my mother's side of the family. My mother and father are divorced. My father was pretty much up in arms. He was, I sensed a great deal of what I would consider paranoia on his part. Don't you see, they're trying to get another one. You've got to be careful, we're a minority, da-da-da-da-da. And I was very, very taken aback, because here I thought it was just a traditional family deal, no big thing. So apparently there was something there that I was not aware of. It kind of eased up and as time went along, and then there was a period of time before they met Cliff. When they met him, everybody thought he was wonderful. They could see how happy we were together. They could see how happy he made me, I made him. That was the emphasis at that time. When we approached the day of the wedding, my mother had made it very clear to me that if there was not a rabbi present, as far as she was concerned, we were not married. And I was, again, a little taken aback by that, but later on realized that was okay with me, because there were some things that I did want to have at my wedding ceremony that could only be performed by a rabbi. So we were able to include those things as well as have a minister present. And then things again subsided for a while until we had our first child, even though we did make it clear to them before the wedding that that was what our intentions were, was to bring her up in the practicing Christian faith that we were both used to and that was a part of our lives. At the same time, making her aware of what I consider to be just a very minimal bit of knowledge of the Jewish religion that I knew as I grew up.
Well, we talked earlier, before the five of us, there's five of us, about what the different religions add to your the two religions add to your relationship and bringing up children. And since both of you have decided to raise your children Christian, what would you say to your Jewish parents, to your Jewish friends, about how the Jewish faith will affect your raising your children?
One thing I think that's very important is that our children will grow up to be tolerant, and that they will see me doing some of the ceremonies during the year in the house, and I believe they'll have a better understanding of other religions as a result, and that's very important to us.
Yeah, I think Alejandro our son will have a greater appreciation for the Jewish roots of Catholicism. And, in the Catholic faith, we do both the Old and the New Testament, and so it's not as if we're ignoring one over the other. And he will know about his Jewish heritage. You know, we can't deny it. I don't want that to be denied. It's a part of him. It has helped shape his father and the kind of person that he is, and I would not want that to be ignored in any way.
What about you?
Well, I would like to say along the same lines. I think one of the main concerns on my side of the family is that I'm denying my Jewish upbringing. And I don't know if I'll ever really be able to get through to them with the fact that I don't believe I'm denying anything. I believe I'm going on from there and adding on. The Old Testament is included in the Christian religion, and it's a very important part of it. I don't feel comfortable, and we haven't really discussed practicing any of the Jewish traditions. To me, it would be physically going through the motions, because I don't know what to say while you're lighting the candles. I don't really know a lot about the ceremony other than what it looks like. To me, the emphasis was on the fact that we did it with the whole family. And so that's about as much as it would be for me. I definitely want her to be made aware of the holidays, and if we're ever in the same town with my family when they're being celebrated, I would definitely love to be joining them in those.
Did you want to add anything to that, Cliff?
Just what was pretty much already said as far as a great respect for the Old Testament as well as the New, and the Jewish people and the great lessons from our Old Testament.
Great. You all have been married now.
4.5 years.
And it's a done deal.
Oh, yeah.
It's a settled issue.
Yeah, it was settled before we got married. We made the decision. We informed our family that that's the way it was going to be, because we wanted to reach a decision without a lot of interference from family, because we'd seen relationships break up after a lot of interference from family over the religion issue. And that's why we decided this is our decision, and that's it.
Have there been any compromises to come up because of the religious emphases in your background? Probably not as much for you all, because you are pretty much on the same track, but have there been any compromises that seem to be shaped by your values, your backgrounds, as you can tell?
Compromises in what sense? Well, I guess one is, you know, the Catholic Church is just, and Judaism too, is just very family oriented, and I do feel kind of strange going to church just with Alejandro, you know, but I knew that was going to happen, and I've learned to accept that. You know, but it is difficult at times to see all these families at church, and I'm there by myself with Alejandro, but you know, we have so many other things, you know, that other families don't. You know, we celebrate the richness of both our cultures at home, you know, and does a Hanukkah prayers, and that's beautiful. And you know, Alejandro probably thinks we're little pyromaniacs. We do Hanukkah candles, you know, Advent candles, you know, and. But I think that we have a richness in our home that, you know, maybe others don't because of that.
Would you ever go to church with them?
Actually, I have fairly often for various occasions involving the family. I go. I don't participate in the service, but you know, I have a working understanding of how the service works, and Adelia has gone to synagogue on various occasions also.
Well, you said you're at St. Thomas.
St. Thomas More, right.
Where do you attend synagogue when you go?
Well, it's mainly been out of state for about mitzvahs, you know, some weddings.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to some of the synagogues in Austin and San Antonio for those types of occasions also, but I do not attend synagogue regularly.
Well, let's back up in your relationship, because when you got married, you did not get married in the Catholic Church.
No, we had a Unitarian wedding, and then we had our marriage blessed in the Catholic Church. We figured it would eliminate a lot of potential problems, and we were able, by having a Unitarian ceremony, we were able to incorporate traditions from both our cultures. You know, we had the aras and the laza from the Mexican culture. We had readings from the New Testament. We also had, you know, readings in Hebrew. You know, we, you know, drank a cup of wine. We smashed the glass, and the Jewish people in the ceremony yelled Mazel Tov afterwards. You know, and the Christians all went, huh? So.
What about you all in the actual ceremony of your wedding?
Looking back on it, I kind of think we had a good time. It was probably a lot of stress and strain as we were doing it, but we kind of had to like cut and paste and do the same sort of thing. I wanted to have the smashing and breaking of the glass and the sharing of the cup of wine, and the minister said, well, that's fine, but I can't do the wine because that's communion. No problem. The rabbi was going to do that. The rabbi did the rings. The minister did. We kind of shared everything. And also, because we were including the two religions, I didn't personally feel comfortable having the ceremony in either a church or a temple. And so we had it outside, which we thought was kind of neutral territory.
Yeah, we did that at the Southwest Cross Center, which used to be an old Ursuline Academy, but is now a craft center. Mm-hmm. And that worked out real well for us. Nobody felt threatened. Nobody from either side.
Are you in community with other people who have kind of gone through what you have gone through? Other interfaith couples? Do you kind of hang out, or how does that work?
No, we don't. I know of other people, but we don't hang out with other people. It's not like, badge or anything like that,
It's not like a badge.
Yeah, it's not like, A, scarlet letter A or whatever, it's not like that,
But you all were recently interviewed for
Parenting Magazine.
Parenting Magazine.
Yes.
Because
and I guess the issue of interfaith marriage is becoming more of an issue because more people are doing it, with people who weren't exposed to one another. The cultures are being exposed to them now.
It's an extremely important issue in Judaism also, mm-hmm. and I certainly understand that the numbers of Jews are small enough so that it's a serious issue with rabbis. And I believe some parts of the religion are reaching out to interfaith couples in a way that wasn't true a while back.
Yeah. We have neighbors who have a similar situation. She's Jewish and he's Methodist, I believe, and they're raising their children Jewish. And they've been married, 15 years or so, so it can be done.
Mm. Tell me what you think being in the Jewish kind of situation, culture, being married to your wife and now being connected to your in-laws will do to your Christian ministry. How do you think it's going to affect the way you minister? You said you didn't beat her over the head before she converted.
Well, I have this feeling that my in-laws, again, because of the distance between us, we very seldom sit down and are able to talk about this issue. And someday I would like to do that. I just have a feeling that they felt that I really evangelized Wendy into this whole thing, and it was my newfound faith belief that I was recently experiencing that was bubbling over in me that kind of passed on to Wendy in a very, not a very coercive way at all, but just inviting her along with me to participate. That we grew to then grow together, and our faith has been growing ever since. I believe I spoke already of the respect for the Old Testament and the Jewish people, and I see that in seminary now, the issues that I'm dealing with. I have great respect, and someday I'd love to sit down and really see what their viewpoint is on a lot of the stories of the Old Testament and the Jewish, the Torah. I can see it being a very big plus in as far as my studies go.
I think I've become a lot more sensitive to anti-Semitism. It was something that, in growing up in an area, I grew up in the Valley where 90% of the people are Catholic, that I really wasn't aware of, and now I'm very cognizant of it, and that it does exist, and I think, geez, why does this happen? And I think I definitely have become a lot more sensitive to it, and I realize, hey, you're talking about a people, that my husband belongs to, and he definitely is not like that. My son is half Jewish. His heritage is half Jewish, and you can't, paint, such a broad picture, with anti-Semitism. And I definitely, I find myself, I think a lot more at guard about that.
I'm really sorry that we don't have the couple that is Jewish Buddhist, because I would imagine that the questions are a little bit different for people who don't have kind of the same streamlined interest. I mean, it's easy for those of us who are Christian, although I can hear some of my Jewish friends going, oh, please don't say, you know, Christians are quick to say Judeo-Christian heritage. Jews do not say that for the most part. But I can see that it's easier for Jewish Christian couples than maybe Buddhist Christian or Buddhist Jewish. Do you see yourselves at all participating in that discussion on a larger level? Can you see that there might be a need in the community for people who are actually in the pot, so to speak, to talk about it?
Yes, because a lot of people are choosing to marry and choosing to ignore the issue of religion. And then when they go through a major life change like a wedding or the birth of a child, everything explodes because they haven't dealt with that issue. They figure, well, we'll deal with it once we cross this bridge, be it the birth of a child or whatever. And then it's so difficult to make a decision. You have so many outside pressures. And we eliminated that by making those decisions long before we crossed those bridges. And I have known of marriages that have broken apart because they did not deal with that issue. And it's really sad, but it's happening more and more. But a lot of people are saying things like, well, we'll let our child decide when he's 18. Well, by then it's too late. You know, or well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and then they realize they don't know what to do when they cross that bridge, so they're kind of at a stalemate. I mean, that's what I have seen.
Yeah. So I think in a way that you all are kind of giving us a mandate as a religious community, those of us who pastor, those of us who are rabbis, or whatever our titles might be.
Well, it used to be that, you know, marrying, you know, interfaith marriages or whatever used to be Protestant and Catholic.
Right.
Yeah. Look where we are now.
Right. We have come quite a far away from just being Protestant and Catholic.
Well, it used to be you married outside your circle if you married a German and a Czech or whatever, you know. So.
Yeah, I'm at the place where when you get to that place on the page where they say, check your color or check your race, you kind of want to put other and think of something
Make
else
up your
to put
own.
there. Well, we are out of time, and I am really glad, Cliff and Wendy, that you were here to share your kind of journey, religious journey, and Adelia and Ed, thank you both for coming. I should say real quick that you all are newspaper reporters.
That's right.
You work for the Light in San Antonio, and you for the Austin American Statesman here, and that Wendy works as an industrial secretary for Trammell Crow. Thank you all for being here. As we end today's show, I really want to thank you again for being here, for your discussion. I think it's important, and how this affects our faith. On behalf of Austin Faith Dialogue, I'm Valerie Bridgman Davis, thanking you for watching and inviting you to join us again next week. Peace to you.
For more information, call Austin Metropolitan Ministries at 472-7627.